lucky. You just came in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates you. So,
You will be the second last. Oh, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My topic is on the Prophet ﷺ's preparation and his tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ had prepared for his ummah the best of all ummahs in all the world. The ummahs of Musa alayhi salam eventually became slightly corrupted and eventually became what we see today. The ummahs of Ibrahim alayhi salam split off into two ummahs of Ismail alayhi salam, which is currently our ummah today. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the greatest example of tawakkul in Allah and how to prepare for something, because when he did the hijri, the hijra was not at first intended. It came from the tribes of Khazraj and Al-Aus from Medina, who had come to ask the Prophet ﷺ to offer their protection to him. The Prophet ﷺ had actually prepared an entire journey afterwards. All of the Sahaba had left to Medina except for four. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ali radiallahu anhu, and a few other people who had not been able to leave. So the Quraysh were getting really worried about this. If the Prophet ﷺ gains power in Medina had many major trading posts there. The tribes of Al-Khazraj and Al-Aus were very powerful in the region. And so the Quraysh had a meeting. As a matter of fact, Iblis was in this meeting. He came as an elderly man and introduced himself as a man from Al-Najm who had wanted to stay here. So the Quraysh had come up with three options that they could use. The first was imprisoning the Prophet ﷺ. This would fail because the Prophet ﷺ's followers could come and free him. The second was to expel him, but that would be giving him a free passage to Medina. The third was to kill him. They could not come up with a way to kill him that would not cause the Prophet ﷺ's tribe, Banu Hashim, to retaliate against them. So Abu Jahl came up with a plan. He would call somebody from each tribe, and they would take their swords and they would kill the Prophet ﷺ at once he comes out of his house for Fajr. So the Prophet ﷺ had heard of this, and his tribe couldn't do anything about this because there would be too many people to fight, and the blood would be on everyone's sword. So therefore, there was nothing that they could do. They had to come up with a peaceful solution. Iblis himself, who was attending the meeting as an elderly man, had accepted this and had said himself that this is a good plan. So then Jibreel alayhi salam was sent down and told the Prophet ﷺ he would leave. See, this entire time the Prophet ﷺ was waiting for permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he could leave to Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ never did anything without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is a role model for us in this way, that we should never do anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command and his Prophet Muhammad ﷺ commanded us not to do, and should only do those that he allowed us to do or has asked us to do. So then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and he had prepared a plan with him. He and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, they would go to a cave. They would go to a cave nearby, and they would not take a route that anybody heard of. This route is actually currently the route from Jeddah to Medina today. The engineers in Saudi Arabia found out that this route is the best route to use when going to Medina. So then the Prophet ﷺ didn't leave before the assassins had come to kill him. So at night, while the Prophet ﷺ had told Ali radiallahu anhu to sleep in his bed. So the assassins had gathered around his house and they looked through the window and they saw somebody sleeping there. They had assumed it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Instead, it was Ali radiallahu anhu. And so then the Prophet ﷺ had complete tawakkul in Allah, and so then he left his house. He left his house, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a barrier in which the people, the assassins, they could not see the Prophet ﷺ. As a matter of fact, one narration says that the Prophet ﷺ took sand and he threw it upon their heads, and they still did not notice this. So then the Prophet ﷺ joined Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, and together they left. So you see, you could have to see the amount of faith in Allah our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. And you also have to see the preparation. There are two things necessary for us. We need to prepare, and we need to have tawakkul in Allah. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, he prepared everything so that his Sahaba could go to Medina. He prepared everything so that he could leave without the assassin being able to even lay an arm on him. And in the end, he was able to successfully go to Medina and was able to form, at that time, historians consider, is the time when the Islamic State was officially formed. Not this thing in Syria or anything, the actual true Islamic Caliphate, as they call it now. This was formed because of the Prophet ﷺ's preparation, and this is what we should use in our lives today. Whenever we have an exam coming up, we need to prepare, have tawakkul in Allah. Whenever we have a big speech to do, we need to have tawakkul in Allah, and we also need to have faith, and we also need to prepare for it. And whenever we do anything, we need to prepare and have tawakkul in Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.